This decade has been insane for rap albums so far, with some of my favourite albums ever coming out this decade, and even both of my personal favourite albums of all time being released in that time. For me personally, the 2020s is already strongly competing with the 2010s in terms of high quality hip hop output. So for my top 10 albums, planning this video, I didn't want my list to be super similar to everyone else. When picking my albums, I tried to think of it as if I was stranded on a desert island. I could really save 10 rap albums from the decade. These would be the ones I'd save. While it helped me make the list, there's still so many albums I wish I could include. I'll go over a few of my honourable mentions later on in the video. These are the 10 albums I personally would want to see from this decade so far. But please let me know your top 10 albums of the decade in your own personal opinion. I'd be super interested to know. So without further ado, let's get into my top 10 rap albums of the 2020s.
A lot of y'all fake flex, nigga, that is not your necklace.
Limbo. I feel like this is going to be an album that almost nobody else has on their list, with it only sitting at an Album of the Year score of 75 and being the 260th best album of the year 2020 alone. But to me, this album is special. If you don't think you're familiar with Amina, I'm sure you've at least heard his hit song, Caroline.
Bad things, funny as hell, thick as fuck, oh my god.
Limbo is excellent. It might just be my favourite summer album of all time, and it's one of my favourite feel-good albums of all time. I can't even count the amount of times that I've spun this album on a walk on a sunny day. It's even my 9th most listened to album of all time. For anyone that hasn't had a chance to listen, this is the epitome of pop rap, and the album does what it goes out to do perfectly. Great features from Jid, Vince Staples and Young Thug. It's summer banger after summer banger, with some lyricy focus songs such as Roots and Mama mixed in, with Roots being my favourite song on the album, with the highlight being this sublime feature by Jid.
Tick-tock time for them seeds, switch them Z-Go man.
Amina is more lyrically focused on this album than on any other project. The album acts as the coming of age story for Amina, and it's his most emotionally mature album. Interestingly, Kobe Bryant acts as the catalyst for Amina's maturity on the album, with him being mentioned multiple times on the project.
R.I.P. Kobe. You was like a dad to a nigga, so I'm sad my nigga had to get you tatted on me.
And even a spoken word interlude being dedicated to Kobe's death and how it impacted Amina.
Like a lot of my innocence and like being a young person died with Kobe, and now like when him being gone, I'm like, let me figure out how money works.
If you haven't checked it out yet, please give it a listen. This is definitely an album that I could not live without.
Put the methanations on your clown ass. Catch a nigga up and leave him down bad. I go get a pack and take a nigga town and fuck his bitches with my out of town ass.
Alfredo. I fucking love this album. Please don't tell JPEG Mafia I said this. Love you, Peggy. This album gotta be top 2 food-based rap albums of all time, and I might even go as far to say that it's the best pasta-based inspired album of all time. Take that, Guns N' Roses and the Spaghetti Incident. But yeah, this album is insanely good and easily one of the best rap albums of the decade. I could easily see how a lot of people would have this album much higher on their list than I do. It's just that good. And as good as King's Disease by Nas is, I really don't see how it managed to beat out Alfredo to win Rap of the Year in 2021. And while the album maybe isn't just as good as Pinata or Bandana, it's not super far off those projects in terms of quality for me. The album just oozes charisma and feel from start to finish. It's luxury rap in its finest form, with Freddie Gibbs and The Alchemist having amazing chemistry throughout. I honestly think this might be the best album where The Alchemist is most in tune with the artist he's working with. He kills the production on this album, creating a dusty, old school landscape, giving the album a strong, elegant theme throughout. The features on this album are just insane too, with Benny the Butcher's feature on Frank Lucas being a standout, with lines such as,
So lines to abuse us, now abuse y'all with lines.
It's a shame that these two are beefing right now, because they work insanely well together on a track. The album even has a great introspective verse from Tyler the Creator, where he talks about how he's changed from a goblin to a businessman.
I used to be a goblin under them bridges, now I'm a businessman.
And Conor the Machine and Rick Ross have great features on the album too. But yeah, this album is like a solid 9 out of 10 to me, and it just adds to Freddie Gibbs' already insane catalogue.
Rolls Royce pull up, black boy hop out. Shout out to my mother and my father didn't pull out.
Call Me If You Get Lost. I absolutely love this album. As a Tyler fan whose longtime favourite songs were Buffalo and Who Dat Boy, I love to see Tyler in his banger lane here. I love the world building in this album and the character of Tyler Baudelaire, and how every song helps to build the summary picture of this world. The entire album feels like a summer vacation through luxurious parts of Europe, and is some of my favourite world building in any album. This album easily has Tyler's best rapping ever, and through the character of Tyler Baudelaire, we see Tyler in a boastful, braggadocious lane for the first time, with lyrics such as,
Got too much self-respect, I wash my hands for I piss.
And while the albums are sonically and thematically very different, I honestly think this isn't too far off Igor in terms of quality. This album has some of Tyler's best songs in the form of Wilshire, Lumberjack, Sweet I Thought You Wanted to Dance, and Hot Wind Blows. Tyler's versatility is on full display here too, with hard-hitting bangers like Lumberjack, Lemonhead, Corso and Juggernaut, before he goes into a more luxurious lane in songs like Safari and Hot Wind Blows, while still shifting into more R&B and pop-inspired songs like What's Your Name. And then once you take into account the estate sale, this album just goes to a whole other level, with Sorry Not Sorry maybe just being my favourite Tyler song of all time. And being a long-time fan of his, the fan service through the song and the music video just makes the song a masterpiece to me. Stuntman is another one of my favourite songs on the album, with Vince Staples absolutely killing his verse. Come If You Get Lost is easily a top 10 album of the decade so far.
Hey, black flag all on my mic. I've been known to spend a lot.
King of the Mischievous South. I feel like this is another album that wouldn't find itself in too many people's top 10 of the decade so far, but to me, it has easily earned its place on the list. I remember in the build-up to this album, I had for some reason told myself that I wouldn't like it. I hadn't been just as big a fan of Denzel's sound going into the album, with me not being a big fan of songs like Blood on My Nikes.
Okay, set it off. I'ma do the damn thing.
And while it's not a bad song, it was not the direction that I wanted to see Denzel going in. The song lacked replayability for me, and for a Denzel Curry song was pretty underwhelming. Because of this, I told myself I wouldn't like the album and that I wasn't super excited for it. But the album blew every expectation I had for it out of the water. King of the Mischievous South is the best rap album for pure bangers of the decade so far. I actually think this album did a better job at doing what Zoo tried to do. A banger-focused album making use of a sound of rap that's a love letter to the area. With Zoo being Florida-style rap, Denzel excels even more at this Memphis sound. It's important to note that I'm not talking about King of the Mischievous South Volume 2. I'm talking about the deluxe, which Denzel simply referred to as King of the Mischievous South. The deluxe actually adds some of my favourite songs in the album, with Still in the Paint, which samples Waka Flocka's iconic song, as well as P.O.P., which has been in my rotation constantly since its release. The song Got Me Geeked sees Denzel go into a T-Pain type lane and it works perfectly. The feature list of this album is just insane, with features from A$AP Rocky, Ski Mask the Slump God, Ferg, That Mexican OT, 2 Chainz, Kenny Mason, Project Pat, and so many others, with everyone absolutely killing their verses. Black Flag Freestyle has been constantly in my rotation, and it's easily one of the best songs to come out in 2024. That Mexican O-Tail kills it in the song, with smooth lines like,
Turn this noodle pack into spaghetti, then ride with his body on the hood of the Chevy.
This album has some of Denzel's best rapping performances too.
Curry the killer, I'm back in the building. I kick in the door and I bust up the ceiling. Y'all niggas don't want it, I'm ready, I'm willing. You get 'em, I got 'em, I tell 'em, let's get it.
But being less introspective than albums such as Imperial, Taboo, and Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, the lack of introspection doesn't take away from his raps, with Denzel going into a more boastful pocket than most of his other projects. Throughout the project, he does oozes with charisma, with quotables like,
Yo hoes take a cockatoo, so that bitch a bird, nigga.
But yeah, overall, this album is just insane, and I feel like it's a little bit too overlooked.
They can't sleep till our spirit is crushed. How much fighting must we do? We've been fearless enough. All we've seen is broken homes that run poverty, corrupts government.
Sometimes I might be introvert. As someone who grew up on UK rap, this album genuinely solidified Sims as one of the greatest and maybe even the best British rapper of all time. I feel like a lot of people have this album even higher than I do, and I can totally see why. The album was orchestral, grandiose, and cinematic from start to finish. Sims is less aggressive on this album than she is on her other albums. You won't find a song like Venom on here, but her performance on this album is my favourite out of any of her projects. She often appears more soft-spoken on this album too, leaning into the idea of her as an introvert. I'd even go as far to say that the song Introvert itself is one of the best songs of the decade. It is simply just perfection from start to finish, and practically begging you to just give this song a particular listen. While some people claim her tone in this album can be slightly monotone at times, I do believe this is done intentionally. Her delivery fits the beat she's rapping over and almost to the serious and introspective vibes of the songs on the album. This is an album that you can sit with Genius open and just become more and more amazed by Sims' genius on it. I especially feel like the song Little Q Part 2, where Sims raps from the perspective of her cousin who was stabbed and almost died. Her delivery fits the beat she's rapping over and adds to the serious and introspective vibes of the songs on the album. The album encapsulates Sims' feelings on her roots, environment, family, womanhood, and her fame, all of which help to create a vivid description of her psyche. While the song Rolling Stone highlights Sims' versatility, it is probably my least favourite song on the album, and fits the vibes of the album a little less than other songs on the project. Overall, it is a good song, but it doesn't hit the same as the highs of some of the other masterpieces on this album. The first half of the project is honestly one of the strongest starts to an album I've heard, and while the second half isn't just as good as the first, the album is still amazing throughout. Dark Times by Vince Staples. From this point on, every album I name in the list is to me a 10 out of 10 perfect album. Dark Times made me realise just how big a fan of Vince Staples I really am. I've been a fan of the Long Beach native since I first heard North. Something in this album in particular really solidified my love of Vince. It drew me further into the world of Vince Staples. I maybe want to go back and re-experience every Vince project. He genuinely has one of the most special catalogues in all of rap to me. But what makes his album so special? Every song has you hanging on his every word. Vince shows us his scars on here, and we see a deeper insight into Vince's usually cynical worldview. My favourite song on the album, Black and Blue, starts off with the lines,
It's far from the sky. Minding the hooligans, I think I'm losing it. Hope you're along for the ride. Buckle the seatbelt. So many women to crash and die.
Vince sounds tired in this album. He seems like the world has really worn him down, with lyrics like,
It's hard to sleep when you the only one living the dream. Hard to leave niggas hanging when you the money tree.
These exemplify Vince's struggle with his celebrity status. But the album doesn't feel like a rapper talking down to us mere peasants about how difficult being a celebrity has been. It feels like a close personal conversation with Vince, where he's given us a glimpse into his psyche and showing the lack of glamour that comes with his money and celebrity. The album ends and starts with the sounds of birds chirping, showing the endless loops of the problems that Vince deals with, which only further adds to the emotions that he's expressed throughout the album. The album is just packed with amazing songs too, with Black and Blue being my favourite song on the album, followed by Etouffee and then Little Homies, which has the enchanting chorus of,
Life hard, but I go harder. Life hard, but I go harder. Life hard, but I go harder.
This album has Vince's best writing in my opinion, with Shame on the Devil being a clear highlight of this.
Voices still in my head, voices still in my head. Beef with my closest of friends and make no amends. I'd rather kill him instead.
The entire song has an eerie, gloomy feel, giving it a thick and enthralling atmosphere. Everything about this album is just perfection to me. It's so good that even as a long-term Vince fan, it's already my most streamed Vince album of all time. And I'm not gonna lie, I think there's a very strong argument to say that Vince has been the best rapper of the 2020's decade so far. Ebem by Yame. A lot of you won't have heard of this album or even have heard of Yame, but you've definitely seen him before. This was my introduction to Yame, and I've been a fan ever since. Yame is a 32-year-old French Cameroonian singer and rapper, and while I struggled over whether to include this album as a rap album on the list, as it very much isn't entirely rap, both Google and Album of the Year listed as rap, so I thought it'd be unfair to not include it in the list. After seeing Yame's Colour Show, I listened to his mixtape Allow, which has since become one of my favourite mixtapes of all time. But Ebem is simply a masterpiece, and a layer above. It has some of my favourite production I've ever heard. The soundscapes on this album are jazzy, trap influence and orchestric, giving the album a really cinematic sound. While I only speak a small amount of French and most of the lyricism on this album does go over my head, Yame's performance along with the production truly speaks for itself. Ebem blends neo-soul, hip-hop, R&B, jazz and Afrofusion into something that I've simply never heard before. Each song finds Yame stepping into a different pocket between these genres, and he captures my attention from beginning to end throughout each of these songs. There's simply no mid or just good songs in this album, but if you want to try some of the highlights on this album, I'd recommend you listen to Solo, Shoot and Happy End. These are easily my favourite songs in the album, and this is honestly one of my favourite albums of all time.
Rich nigga, broke phone, trying to keep the balance, I'm staying strong. Stop playing with me before it turn to a song.
Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. This is one of my favourite albums of all time, and my second favourite Kendrick Lamar album. I remember this album dropped as I was doing my A-levels, which are the tests you need to get into college, and the album just became a total obsession for me. While I should have been studying, I just sat listening to this album with Genius open, trying to take everything I could from it. The obsession actually started from when The Heart Part 5 dropped, about a week before Mr. Morale. The album starts off with United in Grief, which is one of my favourite album intros ever, and it honestly rivals Wesley Theory to me in just how insanely good of an intro it is.
I hope you find some peace of mind.
The intro gives me chills. I love how this album feels like a stage play, through the use of piano, choirs, and the use of footsteps throughout it that all help add to this vibe. I really think the production on this album is underrated. A highlight of this album to me is Father Time. It's easily one of my favourite Kendrick songs of all time, and Sampha absolutely kills his feature as usual.
Early morning wake ups, practicing on day offs, tough love, bottled up, no chaser.
Moving on to disc 2, I think the album gets even better. Count Me Out is one of my favourite songs of all time, and the writing on it is just insane. Here, Kendrick uses masks and the pandemic as a framing device to create a metaphor of the idea of fakeness being an illness that has taken over the world, and it's things like this that make the album a masterpiece to me. The more somber tone of the second half of the album in songs like Crown, Saviour, Mr. Morale, and Mother I Sober really add to the atmosphere and storytelling of the album. But one song in particular really stands out to me, and that song is Mirror. The song perfectly sums up the feeling of the album into one song, and it's one of my favourite album closers ever. The song builds and builds until the chorus hits. This solidified the album as perfect to me, and I remember at the time thinking that this might be Kendrick's last album ever, and that this song was his goodbye to the rap game. And if this album was the closer, I was perfectly fine with that.
Just lost my house to the drought, ayy. Now I'm staying on my mama couch, ayy. Told me get a job or to bounce, ayy.
Melt My Eyes, See Your Future. This might just be my second favourite album of all time. It's also my favourite world in any album ever. It mixes futuristic, sci-fi and western aesthetics into something that is truly unique. Denzel wrote this during the pandemic and it allowed him to get into his most introspective and personal vibe that we've seen from him. We see this from the excellent opener Melt Session, where Denzel reveals his personal trauma.
I've been this way since the day I turned 6. I've been touched before, way before I touched mine. Now I'm almighty pushing through the pain.
This song is excellent from start to finish, and it perfectly transitions into the best song for the 2020s, Walkin'.
A path as I keep on walking, ain't no stopping in this dirty, filthy, rotten.
There's not a single song on this album that's just good. Every single song in here is amazing. The last is another highlight to me. The song Mental follows the last, and it has the smoothest, jazziest beat that Denzel flows over perfectly. Troubles with T-Pain is another one of my favourite songs on here too. Both Denzel and T-Pain have perfect chemistry throughout. The Posse Cut Ain't No Way is probably the most hyped song on the album, with a smooth intro from Black before the vibe completely shifts into a total banger. The verse of Blade is great, although a little short, and the song is one of my favourite lines on the album in the form of X-Wing and Angels are great too, before Denzel goes into his hype mode again in the song Sanjuro, which is just crazy from start to finish. The transitions on this album add so much to the quality of it too, with each song seamlessly blending into the next. It makes it a perfect album listening experience. Also, the deluxe of this album is one of my favourite deluxes ever. The Cold-Blooded Soul version makes the song sound even better than they already do, and the song Chrome Hearts being added makes it one of the best songs on the album. This album is just always going to be one of my favourite projects of all time. Before I reveal my number one, I will have a few honourable mentions that I think deserve to be mentioned. I really want to quickly shout out No Thank You, Prayer for Paris, Hitler Was Hermes 8 Side B, Learn to Swim, Me and Troy McNichols, Kiss the Ring, Ramona Park Broke My Heart, Phantom of the Afters, Pray for Haiti, I Lay Down My Life for You, LP/Offline, The Private Collection of Saba No ID, and Let God Sort 'Em Out. And now for my number one album of the 2020s.
Everybody wanna come and hang with the stars. Pinky ring chain, bling bling in the car.
The Forever Story. I think a lot of people could have guessed this, but this is easily my favourite album of the 2020s. This is Jid's magnum opus. Every song on it is basically a 10 out of 10, and it's my favourite album of all time. With the album kicking off with the smooth Galaxy before we're dropped into the world of The Forever Story with the hard-hitting Radar.
Radar, sonar, laser beams, jets, tanks.
It's then followed by Dance Now, which is an instant classic for me. Before we see Jid's excellent storytelling in Correct Sandwich. Can't Punk Me is an underrated song, with it having the best feature on the album with Dr. Dot.
Okay, pull out the punk, pump me, crocodile Dundee, knocking out Dundee, knocking out front teeth, niggas is way too sensitive, touchy, niggas is aunties.
The highlight of the album is Cody Blue 31, which is honestly one of the most moving songs I've ever heard. The song is dedicated to a friend of Jid's that had a son named Cody, who passed away at a young age. The song is directly dedicated to her grieving mother and to encourage her to keep on going. This makes the song even more beautiful to me, and it's one of my favourite songs of all time. Cody Blue is followed by both Brother Nim and Sister Nim, which are both excellent songs, with Sister Nim especially being one of the best songs on the album. Can't Make You Change is great too. It's then followed by Stars, which is easily one of my favourite songs of all time. Everything from the beat, to the Yasin Beh feature, to Jid's performance, to lines such as
You don't even believe in Jesus, we're in Christian DR.
simply make it perfect. The album ends just as strongly as it starts, with Money, Better Days, Just in Time, Out Louder 2, all being great and having some of Jid's best performances ever. But 2007 being the closer is just the perfect ending to the album. It talks about Jid's come up, and it really adds to the title and theme of the album.
I never dreamt of mumbling words in front of hundreds.
It talks about how he got kicked out of college, and how he talked to his father, who appears on the song, about how he trusted Jid to put his all into rap. This part especially is beautiful.
I'm looking at him, I believe in him, I know what was in him.
J. Cole's spoken word at the end is the perfect ending to the album too, and I love how the very last word in the album is forever. So that is my top 10 rap albums of the decade so far. I'd love to hear your own personal top 10 in the comments below. I've also started a Patreon so I can afford a better mic and maybe even get a PC, so check the link in the description if you're interested in that. I'd love to know whatever videos you'd like to see me do, so leave me some ideas in the comments below. Thank you for watching.